Ever since winning the title in 2022, everything that could have gone wrong for the Golden State Warriors has gone wrong. It has gotten so bad that they might miss the playoffs for a second year in a row. The only one in the entire organization who is still going strong and giving it his all is none other than Steph Curry. Everyone else, whether it be the players, the coaching staff, the front office, has somehow let him down at some point in the last few years. Wasting away the last years of your franchise's greatest player ever, who has spent his entire career here, who accepted a different and lesser role to let another superstar shine, who is responsible for 4 of your 7 championships, is a disgrace. Things are looking so grim in San Francisco right now that one would wonder if Curry, the embodiment of loyalty in a one-franchise player in the NBA, might want to change the scenery. Let's take a look at how the Golden State Warriors went from NBA champions to bottom feeders of the Western Conference in a span of 2 years. Everything looked perfect after the 2022 NBA Finals for the Warriors. Sure, Curry was getting there in age, and Klay and Draymond were past their primes, but they still worked together beautifully. I mean, they had just won a championship without another superstar next to them. They had just revived Andrew Wiggins' career and turned him into a first-time All-Star. And they also had a young core ready to take over some of the older guys' load for the next season. Jordan Poole, Moses Moody, Jonathan Kuminga, and even James Wiseman. Their team was both now and the future. Perfect work from the front office, am I right? You would think so, especially considering the 2023 Warriors pretty much kept the same roster that just won a championship. The only notable loss was the Otto Porter Jr. one, a viable role player who was very good during the championship run, but not the kind of loss that makes you go from NBA champion to struggling to make it past the first round. Except, their season was actually over before it even began. During the summer, footage of Draymond Green punching Jordan Poole in the face during practice was leaked to the public and became the #1 talking point in the NBA landscape for the next few days. This was a real punch. To this day, we don't know exactly what happened between the two, but we now have some more context. It was revealed a few weeks ago that Draymond and Klay were really not happy. One might say jealous, that Wiggins and Poole were extended that summer over the two veterans. There was real tension in that locker room even before the punch. Obviously, Draymond had to publicly apologize for his actions and was suspended for it, but the damage had already been done. Jordan Poole would never be the same after the incident. In the 2022 playoffs, he averaged 17 points per game on 50-40-90 splits. In the 2023 playoffs, his production dropped to 10 points per game, 34% from the field, and 25% from 3. Even during the regular season, you could tell he was not the same, and it's understandable. The thing is, it did not only ruin Poole's season, it ruined the entire chemistry of the team. How are you supposed to get all along and act like nothing happened after your leader, the supposed voice of the locker room, punches one of your best players? The culprit himself openly said that the chemistry was awful that season, and that coming into work was not fun at all. Chemistry wasn't the only reason this season was so rough for Golden State. Andrew Wiggins missed big chunks of the season due to personal reasons. He only played 37 games, but came back in time for the 2023 playoffs. However, he was not the same player at all. In the 24 first games of the season before he first had to leave the team, he was averaging 19 points on 50% from the field and 40% from 3, along with great defense. In the playoffs, 12 points on 29% shooting from 3. The defense wasn't there anymore. A complete shell of himself. The real issue is that he did not come back to form last season either. In fact, he probably had the worst season of his career, averaging 13 points per game, being benched several times, and looking like he didn't care that much at all. Andrew Wiggins was supposed to be the link between the old generation and the new one, the guy you could rely on for great defense and timely shots from 3. Except, after they just extended him for $25 million a year, that Andrew Wiggins was gone, to the point where he's become a negative asset for the team, and he's just taking away opportunities from the likes of Kuminga or Moody, who are actually eager to play for the team. And as forgettable as it was, during that 2023 season, the Warriors traded James Wiseman, a guy they drafted second overall only 3 years ago, for second-round picks. One of the biggest misses in recent draft history, especially when LaMelo Ball was right there at number 3. What could have been if the Warriors didn't fumble this pick so hard? But hey, at least they still have Klay and Draymond, right? Klay actually had a great regular season, averaging over 20 points per game. The thing is, he completely fell off in the playoffs, shooting 38% from the field and 36% from the 3, which is really bad for his standards. In Game 7 against the Kings, he shot 2 of 10 from 3. Facing elimination against the Lakers, he shot 2 of 12 from 3. So the second, third, and fourth options of the team offensively all had a down year. None of them stepped up when it mattered most to help Curry, who had to score 50 in Game 7 against the Kings, a team with no playoff experience whatsoever, which, despite the higher seed, wasn't even favored going into this series. The players let them down, but if it was only the players. After their second round elimination and terrible showings from Poole, who was barely playable all playoffs, they decided to trade him for a 38-year-old Chris Paul, who at first did not quite seem to fit with the Warriors. After their extremely forgettable 2024 season, Chris Paul was simply cut from the team. So yes, the Warriors traded a young player who had been amazing in the NBA Finals a year prior for nothing. There it was, the limitations of the two-timeline strategy, aka having a young core and a veteran core. Now, the Warriors weren't winning games and weren't really developing their young core. Poole and Wiseman got shipped out for virtually nothing. Moody is yet to play 20 minutes per game for a season, and Kuminga had to wait until the end of the 2024 season to finally start and having some real minutes. Warriors fans heavily criticized Steve Kerr these past few years for some of his choices regarding playing time, such as Wiggins playing more than Kuminga last season despite the latter being better, and especially way more motivated and concerned. The front office completely fumbled all the assets they had, whether it be in 2023 or 2024. The Warriors were constantly rumored to look for an upgrade. OG Anunoby or Pascal Siakam from the Raptors were often linked to the Bay and would have greatly improved the team. Now, look at the Siakam trade, aka Bruce Brown and some first round picks, which will end up being in the 20 to 30 range. Not much for an all-NBA guy, right? Why didn't the Warriors get in on that? The truth is, the Warriors put themselves in an awful situation. Last season, they paid more than $110 million to Clay, Draymond, Wiggins, and Chris Paul. Perhaps the worst spent $110 million in the league. They did clear some cap space by cutting Chris Paul and letting Clay walk in free agency. But at the end of the day, they're still paying Wiggins and Draymond a combined $50 million per season for two guys who barely contributed to anything offensively last season until 2027. The only positive thing was their 2023 draft, where they picked up Podziemski and Trace Jackson Davis. These two guys and Kuminga are the only positive assets on their roster that could possibly be traded for another star, but it still seems unlikely. So far in the 2024 offseason, the Warriors have made some decent moves. Bringing in Melton for POA defense or Buddy Hield for shooting after Clay left is good, but they feel like lateral moves. The Western Conference is a war zone. We have rarely seen such a competitive conference in the NBA. None of the teams who finished above the Warriors last season feel like they will drastically drop off this year. On the other hand, some of the teams who finished below the Warriors will improve, most notably the Grizzlies and the Rockets, or even the Spurs led by Year 2 Wemby. At best, the Warriors are probably slightly better than last season. However, they need much more, and it has been made clear that they will struggle to do anything. I mean, sure, the Warriors have a decent amount of draft picks that could be traded, but are they willing to include Kuminga, their best asset? Without him in a deal, can you even get an elite player? Is it then worth to trade your future picks for a player who will just make you a 5th seed and not a real contender? What elite player would even want to come after all the Draymond Green shenanigans? In the midst of all of this, Steph Curry, who has maintained an all-NBA level and overall elite production on the court, is left alone. The current second leading scorer of the team is Jonathan Kuminga. They don't have a real co-star with him. The man is 36, and ever since KD left, he hasn't had a true all-star talent next to him. As good as he is, how many years does he have left in the tank? They basically already wasted the last 2 years, and the 2025 season is looking like a third one in a row. His contract ends in 2026. What will happen by then? As long as Wiggins and Draymond are on the team, they won't have much flexibility, and it's not like teams are rushing to inquire about any of them. Steph Curry is unlikely to ask out. He probably should if we're only talking about his chances to win a last ring. This Warriors team doesn't look like they will be competing in the next 2 years, which probably are the last elite years of Steph's career. So does that just mean he ends his career on an average team battling for a play-in spot after carrying the entire squad for the whole season? One could argue that being a Warrior for life is better than leaving and ring chasing at the very end of his career. Either way, one thing is for sure. After all the success the organization has had in the 2010s, they are absolutely ruining the end of Stephen Curry's career, and it's sad to see.